What's up, gang? Normally I have the guests off in their own little room and all that kind of stuff, but I was like, no, 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 we don't have time for that. I'm just gonna bring Frank straight out. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna have a great fucking time.
I love your the informality of Chuck's live streams. No fancy music or
Yeah,
intros. It's just
Ooh,
I'm here.
I'm in. I do have my intro. I just wait for people to, show up because I want them to see that more than anything else. This little intro here, like this first minute or so,
This is
no
just us.
one, no one fucking sees it live.
Yeah, this is just BSing.
Yeah, yeah. This is the bullshit that someone's gonna like. I could say "fuck your mom" to half the people. No one's gonna fucking see it until they come back and they watch it live and they're like, "Fuck who? You're a piece of shit." Of course, you'll know too.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't care.
I'm gonna go to Facebook real quick so that we can make sure that this is loaded up for everybody, so they can see all this wonderful amazingness. It's officially public. Boom. So, oh, see, Wendy's there already, and she heard the
Hi.
shit that I said.
That's,
Guys, if you're out there, like, share, comment. We're
do
hanging
the
out.
social media things.
Yeah, all that bullshit. Because tonight it's about Frank. We're gonna hang out with Frank. We're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna help count down. I don't know if we're gonna be here for the 2 hours until your thing's
Don't
done.
don't make me the center of attention. That's sends my anxiety spiking.
It's the Frank Show, starring him. He's Frank. It's the Frank Show. I'm kidding. Jeff, good to see you. Hey, what's going on, man?
Thank you, John.
That's really sweet.
I like my work too.
Right? Well, so I'm one of the few people who've been able to read this new book, The Truce.
You did. I wanted your opinion on the ending, which
Was I helpful?
you were helpful.
Oh, good.
You were helpful because you were reiterating what other people were saying.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it's when you script something, it never you don't really know how it's gonna hit until it's on the page. You know.
Oh shit, Gene Hoyle's in the house. Good to see you, homie. Shit. Sit and chat with us for a while, Gene. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. I know, I totally know what you mean.
So this particular page, without giving too much away, I wrote it as a silent page, but it didn't really hit the way I wanted it to, just being silent without any dialogue. So I added some dialogue to it.
And I actually really like the ending now. I think it punches nicely.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Wendy had to switch to YouTube. Facebook doesn't like to show me the comments in the chat. Aw. Well, I don't think there's anyone else in the YouTube, so it
I
might.
know, but on Facebook, you were showing all these comments on Facebook. The only one I saw was mine.
Oh, okay. Well, it could have been from someone sharing or whatever. Anyways, yeah. No, I totally feel you. And I mean, you try to do these cool little tricks, and then you're like, yeah, it didn't work. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna fix it?
I was talking about this with Tyler the other night, that there's a lot of moving parts to this story. I definitely couldn't have written it as like my first comic book, because there's different time frames and different narrative structures, and there's voiceover, and it's a lot of different things converging all at once. So it was tricky to have the payoff, and I'm gonna find out in a couple weeks when people get the book if
Right.
it works.
You'll hear, man. Gene says I'll stick around until I fall asleep like an old man. We're probably the same. We might pass out on camera. Yeah.
No, that was the best in the Xbox Live days, when people fell asleep with their headsets on and you could hear them snoring.
Right. When Wendy and I got together, she was here in Texas and I was in Canada, and we would talk, and eventually one of us, usually me, would pass out, and she just kind of listen to me snore and then eventually hang up because it was long distance and expensive as fuck.
Yeah, my wife's an easy sleeper. Right now, she's upstairs with her earbuds in. She's asleep, and her phone is playing Bridgerton. So it's just, you ever do that? You fall asleep watching a show, and before you know it, you come back, and it's like you just finished 6 episodes of Lost. Like,
Every fucking night. But I'm smart in the way that I put on something I haven't watched before. Or sorry, that I have watched before. So like some kind of sitcom or whatever. So then I'm watching, I'm like, that's funny, and then I pass out, and then I wake up a couple hours later, and I'm like, season 6, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm stupid like that. I always want to watch something new, so I always have to wake up the next morning, go back and see, like, do I remember that guy died? I can't.
Right. Gene says, I've been putting women to sleep for years. That's your superpower, buddy. Good for you.
There is many ways to interpret that. very.
Right?
There's multiple ways. You could go twisted, you could go dark, you could go sweet.
Exactly. You want to go dark? It's like, yeah, he spent a couple years, worked for Bill Cosby. It was great.
Yeah. Then he interned for Dr. Kevorkian, and he was doing that too. Or he worked in an old folks' home, and he was tucking ladies in, singing them Goodnight Moon.
That's actually... my mom's going to be here in 9 days. I love you too, Mom. Very excited. You know what? That actually reminds me of something fucking cool that you do. You have, and I don't remember the name of it, but that little 4-panel cartoon, little comic cartoon that you put out all the time.
I call it Another Day on Earth.
Okay. And every single episode, it's always... And I remember seeing it the first couple times, and I'm like, well, why is it different than the last time? But it's always the same art, and you just keep lettering it differently with a different little punchline story every time.
Yeah, so I'm jealous because I wanted to do a webtoon, but I can't draw. And it would be too expensive to hire an artist to draw a new webcomic every single week. So I actually stole this from somebody else. Somebody else did it. I forget who it was. But it was a lot more. It was much simpler than what mine was. And I kind of turned it into an actual 4-panel comic, and I commissioned Megan Wang, who's awesome. She did a series for Dark Horse, and she pulled it off exactly the way I wanted to, and now I can have my own weekly webcomic where it's just the same art every single week, and I just kind of have a little punchline.
Dude, they're great, and I honestly believe that is so fucking smart, because it means that every week you're flexing these writer muscles. You're like, how am I going to attack it? And it's the same thing. Like, I used to do this thing when I fell asleep. I don't know why, but I had this image of a sword coming down and then somebody blocking it with another sword. And it was kind of my way of sort of drifting myself off into some kind of fun fantasy sleep. But the types of swords, the people wielding them, what was happening would always be different. I haven't done that in a long time, but it was kind of my way to just kind of play with something in a weird, different, in a different way every night before I crashed.
That seems very wise of you.
I love like what you're doing. I don't know if you're meaning to do it or not, but what you're doing to me is challenging yourself and creating this way of constantly creating without having to worry about the art. And I think it's brilliant.
Well, it's two things. Number one is I want to provide content that besides buy my book. You know, I want to do stuff other than marketing. So I have a regular posting schedule where I do a story for a tweet. Like, I try to do a story in a tweet. I do those Mondays. I do the 4-panel webcomic on Wednesday. And then I do a 100-word story, a drabble on Friday. And I post those regularly on social media just so I'm doing some other type of engagement besides this is my new work. Go give me money. Yeah. You know, I wanted to just put something out there. And the other thing is, being a writer in comics is difficult in that there's only so much you can do by yourself. You know, you have to really be creative. Like, if you're going to a convention, I mean, you can't do art commissions. You can't really sell prints. So you want to do something other than just have your books on the table and try to hawk them all the time. So you have to really be creative and think outside the box as a writer in comics to keep things fresh. And you have to be creative. Well, thank you, John. Good to know people actually see them.
I mean, I brought it up, so... But yeah, no, I think they're cool. I think it's smart.
I post them on Webtoons too. So it's like if you want to see the whole library, I've done like 60 of them now. So if you want to see the whole library, you can just go there and do bang, 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 bang.
Do you have any favorites? Or do you even like to just move on? Okay, go good.
I have a favorite I just posted the other day, where it was the guy. The guy said he wanted to make a real life Pokemon, so he duct taped a taser to a Pikachu, and then he said Ghastly's easy. All I got to do is fart, and that was the punchline.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
Yeah. So and you know what? I cheat, believe it or not, because I wrote. A couple years ago, I was writing for a website, Comic Crusaders, and they had a rolling like fake horoscope every single day. They would put up a new horoscope, but it was a fake horoscope, and I saved all of them I wrote because I went through the whole year, so I had like 600 of these things, and in order to write the comics, I just go back and look at the horoscope and I kind of twist it into the idea for the comics. So they've all been written already, so it's not like I have to think of new stuff all the time. I shouldn't have said that. Now I look like a cheat and an asshole.
No, man, that's bullshit. That's not a cheat at all, man.
So it's just a way for me to save time, so I don't have to sit down and be like, what am I gonna do for this one? I already have the ideas. I just have to kind of adapt them.
Do you have a special URL for your Kickstarter?
I mean, I just have.
Or is it just the Kickstarter link?
It's the Kickstarter link. But you know what? I've been doing this little hack that Tyler James taught all of us comics launch people, which is everybody's got a long Kickstarter title. Mine is like the Truce action sci-fi one shot, and then when you launch, they'll take that entire title and they'll put that in the URL, which makes it look kind of ugly.
Yeah.
But if you take that out and just put, like I just put the Truce, so when I launched, it just says Kickstarter.com/projects/the Truce, so it looks a little prettier,
So you pretty it up and then you change it afterwards?
And then I change it back, yes.
Nice.
So I just kind of copy and paste. I copy what I want to write, what the title actually it is, and then I just put like a shorter title, and then I generate the URL, and then I paste it back in there as the project name.
Okay, so when you do that when you launch?
I do that after the project has been approved, but before you generate a pre-launch page. Like it tells you, it says on like your promotion page for your Kickstarter before you launch, it will say generate URL. So it will say this will be your project URL. Do you want it to be that?
Okay.
They ask you. So
that's good yeah, I mean, it's been a while, so.
I mean, it's a little thing. It's not really like your project isn't going to sink or swim because of it.
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate you. Kyron's around. What's up, motherfucker? Yeah, see, repurposing work is not cheating at all. And I'm going to take it from him because I want to be able to repurpose work too. Oh, you guys are talking to each other.
Speaking of repurposed work, the Truce is actually repurposed work. I wrote that as a screenplay first, and then it was never produced, and then I adapted it for.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I had never done that before, but yeah, I wrote a screenplay for a guy who was going to do a short film. He actually ended up producing a different script that I wrote for him, but this sat on my computer and I really liked the story, and then I adapted to a comic, and people read the script and they're like, Frank, because I wrote it knowing that he was going to produce it on a minimal budget, so I kept the story very contained. And then when I adapted to a script, the people are like, you don't have to contain your story anymore because it's art. You can like do other things. So I was able to expand it and showcase some other stuff that it wouldn't have been otherwise.
That's cool, man. So I was thinking about you today
Oh,
And
really? Well,
I was.
wait. What were you doing? Was it something?
What I do with myself is none of your
Was it
business.
something? Was it something intimate? Because you
No,
should have called me.
I could have called you, and I could have called you too. Hey, Frank. Oh shit! Again. I'm incorrigible. What can I say? No, I was thinking about you, and I thought you're very well known for shorts. You do a lot of I mean, of course, you do the drabbles and stuff, but also like even most of your stuff now is 1 issue, 2 issues, very contained stories.
Yes.
Is there any plan for you to do something a little more lengthy?
I mean, you know the answer to that because we've talked about a project that's like 11 issues long.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
But you're producing, like, in the near future? I don't think so. I mean, I've written scripts for stuff that's 3 issues. I've written a series that's 5 issues, and then that other one we talked about, which is like 10 issues long. But I don't want to be tied down for a series for like 5 different launches, you know? I have so many ideas and I want to get them all out there, and it's a double-edged sword because in one way it works in my favor because I have a lot of people saying Frank is always giving us something new and people like that. At the same time, it's hard to build that momentum because not everybody likes that, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes people only like horror stuff. Sometimes people only like sci-fi stuff. So it's everybody likes different things. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of doing it for myself. So I want to explore different stories. I want to kiss all the girls. So
I get that, man. You're already married in real life. Why do you have to get married in your writer life too, right?
Yeah.
I
would if it was feasible for me to work with a publisher and actually sell enough copies for it to make sense, I would love to do like a long form story. But just for my business model for launching Kickstarters, if I only have 5 launches a year, I don't want all those 5 to be the same story or characters or whatnot. So
no, I feel you there. Are there any series out there that you would just kill to be able to write?
What do you mean?
Well, so like other ongoing IPs. Is there any that
my
you
own personal stuff?
No, other people's stuff. So other people's IPs that you would love to be able to jump on and play in that sandbox.
Yeah, people. I see writers all the time posting about like, if I never write for Marvel or DC, that's perfectly fine with me because I'm doing my own thing. I'm an indie guy, and that's great. But like, I really want to write for other people. For me, that's really. I mean, I love doing my own stuff, but I also love playing with other people's characters. I feel honored when somebody allows me to do stuff like that. And I've done a bunch of Modern Testament crossovers where I was fortunate enough. I did one with Braden and I did one with Luke Cooper. And the fact that they entrusted me to write stories using their creations it felt really good, you know?
Yeah. Braden loved it. Like he still talks about it. Because Braden and I talk all the time, and he loves Modern Godhood. He loves what you did.
Yeah, it was Modern Testament is a very weird thing because it's not one thing. So, I mean, when I did with Luke Cooper, we did Hollow Girl, which is like a noir, dark vigilante, and we still made it work. And then Braden's is supernatural mythology, action, adventure, and that worked. And then Stephen Pinella, I did a one-shot too with his character, Faith Fallon. And his is like a noir drama that's like really, you wouldn't think it goes with biblical mythology, yet somehow he made it work too. So
you pulled it off.
Yes, I mean I love the challenge of trying to make things work. That's where the fun is. It's the Rubik's Cube of storytelling, trying to make something fit.
I think that's what I like about you most is that you and I both love the gears of storytelling and trying to work. I like to challenge myself. You know, like I have an issue of Welcome to the Void that's a little down the road where I wrote the end. Like I wrote all the way up to a point, and then I said, this, like somebody gets, oh, look what happens. You mentioned his name. We didn't even fucking tag the guy. And there he shows up. I hope your con's going good, homie.
We were talking about modern godhood, Braden.
Yeah. So, I wrote this point where, these two people are about to enter this warehouse, and then the very next page, we see them tied up, and the shit has been kicked out of them. And I gave them very specific wounds, like someone was missing a tooth, someone had a scar in a very specific spot, someone had a bruise in a weird spot, and I did not plan out how those injuries would happen, so that then when I went to write the next issue, I would look and I'd go, okay, these very specific things. What happened to create these very specific wounds? And I like the idea of, kind of fucking with yourself a little bit and going, okay, how are you going to deal with that, asshole?
Yeah, it's you know what? It's also a curse in a way, because if you're watching a show or reading a book and you have that knowledge of storytelling, you view things in a different light. And I actually wrote a piece about this for a website recently. It's that having kids has softened that a little bit, because kids don't care about story structure, they just want to sit down and have a good time and listen to songs and see slapstick comedy. So watching movies with my kids has allowed me to enjoy movies for what they are without overanalyzing them,
Like that. That's future Kira's problem. Exactly. John, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I'm a plotter, so it's hard for me to do stuff like that, because I'm gonna think, like, if I always plot out all of the issues, I never really have those surprises. They're in the planning stages rather than the writing stages when I figure that out. I have very little surprises when I write.
See, and I would actually, so I am a plotter to a point. I try to plot just enough that I have a very good idea. The way I always describe it is, you're in an open field. It's Spider-Man versus Rhino. Rhino is going to kick Spider-Man's ass because Spider-Man doesn't have anything to work with. So I put up these pillars, and those are my main story plot points. Mm-hmm. Now Spider-Man can jump from pillar to pillar, and he's got his mobility. He can move around, and he has but you don't necessarily know how he's going to use those pillars or what he's going to do. So I get to play with that. Like with Belial, for anyone who read that, when I originally had it kind of plotted out and I had a good part of it, but there were certain characters I hadn't plotted anything for. I hadn't plotted anything for Mammon. I hadn't plotted anything for Link. And then at the end of issue 1, when you find out that Mammon has betrayed Belial, that was something in the time I was like, ooh, that's a really good way to end this episode. Let's do it. I want to do that. So I did that. And even my partner, Sean Barbour, had no fucking idea. So I was just like, so I tried something fucked up with issue 1. Check it out and tell me what you think. And he was like, what the fuck, man? What you do? And I was like, I created another barrier. He's like, how are you going to figure it out? And I was like, we'll talk about it for next issue, we'll get into it. And that was fun. So I think if you have something that you can kind of surprise yourself with and improv with, you leave yourself some space, it's fun. But you have to want to do that too. Yeah. John said, a good story is a good story, whether it's sci-fi or horror or whatnot. I as someone, and I'm sure Frank probably feels similarly, as someone who just loves storytelling, yes, I would agree, but not everyone's there. So, I've read romances where I was like, oh, this is really fucking good, actually. All right, I'm all in. But there's a lot of people who they have very specific things. Like, it's not that they love the gears of the storytelling, or even they like, say, specific character types or specific genres. So the genre does end up mattering a lot more because they have specific tastes, expectations.
I'm the same way. If it's well written, if you got good characters, make it engaging. I love the movie. What's it called? The Time Traveler's Wife. It was a book. It's science fiction, but it's pure romance. But it's so good that the way that they handle the sci-fi aspect of it and the character relationships, it was very engaging. So
Right.
I always think of that movie whenever I think of romance, because that's what it is. It's like when people ask me what type of music I like, I say I like good music. Like I listen to everything. Like it's really weird. If I could jam to it, if I could feel it. I'm not a music person, so I can't really tell you musical theory, but I really don't. I mean, I might gravitate towards some stuff other than not, but for the most part, I don't pigeonhole myself into like a specific box with things that I enjoy.
Braden says the only thing Frank does is write good books.
Oh, stop it.
Wendy says, this is why I needed an editor so badly. I am not a plotter. I write in the moment. So true. Oh, my Lord, it's so true. I love that woman to the ends of the earth. But boy, has my hair knotted up.
Well, you know what? The drabbles that I write, those are, I mean, they're only 100 words, so it's not like you could plot them. But I enjoy writing those because when I have to sit down and write one, I'm like, all right, I need ideas. So I just start looking around my house for things. The one I posted today was about sauces. Like I was at a ski resort with my kids, and I had to write one, and they ordered chicken nuggets, and they're like, what sauce do you want? And they had all the sauces, barbecue, sour, like sweet and sour, and I'm like, that's a story idea. So I went back and I had to sit down at the cafeteria table, and I wrote a 100-word story about a girl who couldn't choose what sauce she wanted for her chicken nuggets.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Jeff says, surprise yourself works even better when working with a co-writer. Yes. That's the nice thing about working on the Essence Guard Chronicles with Eric Cockrell, is because we each do one chapter at a time. So we have a plot for what that chapter is going to look like, just so we know what the next chapter. But literally, it's like we're doing 3,500 word chapters, and the plot for that chapter is like 3 sentences long. So there's a lot you get to play with in there, and we'll often like message the other guy and just be like, "Yeah, so I did something, and it's one of those I'd rather ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. So I hope it's good." And usually it is. Like, usually the other guy ends up liking it, because you can explain a plot point to someone and they're just like, it's fucking lame. But you can also write the same plot point and they're just like, oh, fuck, I see what you did there. That's really cool. So sometimes you just do it.
I have a co-writer on my Predestiny novel series, and he's a pantser and I'm a plotter, and the book, it's good. The book is good because it's a combination of both of our styles, but it's a struggle to write sometimes, because I have an outline for it, and he'll write a chapter, and I'm like, that's not what we talked about. He's like, he did something completely different, and I'm like, that doesn't work with the next 10 chapters that we have left. So we compromise, and we figure it out, and you know what? The end result is good, which is it makes it all worthwhile. I also started co-writing a story with somebody, where it was the exact opposite, where I said, this is an experiment. We're not going to have a story at all. I'm just going to write an opening chapter, and then you write the next chapter and do whatever you want. And then I have to write the next one after that and do whatever we want. We had no direction. And they were quick, like turnaround chapters were only like 1,000 words. And it was like, it got really weird. And then the guy fell off the face of the earth, and it's left unfinished. And I'm kind of, I need a co-writer. So if somebody wants to write this thing with me, I need to finish it. But it was,
you heard it here, folks.
It was definitely a fun exercise to see, like, not knowing even in the beginning what the story was going to be about and how we eventually arrived at something. You know?
Yeah,
it was I love the experimentation of writing and storytelling. It's like the challenge, as I always come back to.
I absolutely feel you there. Braden says the bad thing he does is not play Fortnite with us.
My son plays Fortnite, so he'll kick all your asses.
Take his account sometime and come hang out with us.
I'll try. I've never played Fortnite. But you know what? I'm like a video game savant. I just pick up the controllers and I just
There you go.
instinctively know what to do.
Oh, see, Kira says I'd write with you. I dig your style.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Did Chuck's Shop Talk just create this partnership?
Maybe.
That'd be cool. Hit him up, girl. Yeah. So okay, we got the truce going on. Let's play the fucking game real quick. Tell us a little bit about the truce. Okay. I know. Come on, you only have like an hour and a half left to go. So let's do it one more time. Tell us about the truce and why people should come pick it up.
So the Truce is a post-apocalyptic story. It takes place after the fall of society, and there's these two armies that are fighting each other for, I guess, control of what civilization that's left over, and they hate each other. But there is a band of tribal warriors that is threatening them both. So the two sides have to come together and form a truce to fight off their mutual enemy. That's the gist of it.
Did you have any specific Earth cultures in mind when you thought of this? Or?
A little bit, yeah. So there's basically three factions. There are the Centralists, who I view as like the authoritarian, sci-fi, futuristic, strict business kind of group. There are the Nationalists, who are kind of like modern day soldiers in fatigues, kind of militia style. And then the Remerades is the band of tribal warriors, and they're kind of they're tribal warriors, basically. They're tribalism, what they would call savages, and they have their own kind of warrior culture.
Yeah. I liked being able to feel those cultures, by the way, as the story went on. It was obvious that you had kind of a headcanon for sort of what had happened to these different cultures, and you could feel that.
Yeah, I wanted to make them distinct, but I wanted to set them up in familiar camps where that people know. Oh, okay, these are futuristic soldiers, or these are like standard military guys. And the filmmaker that I wrote the script for, his initial idea was, he said, I have 3 different groups. He named the groups, except the Nationalists at the time were the Patriots. I changed their name. But he said, I have these 3 different groups, and they don't like each other, and write a story, go. So basically that was my starting point, and then I kind of built the world and built the characters and the plot and basically what it was about. He just said 3 sides fighting, don't like each other, write it.
Right. By the way, I think Nationalists is a way better choice than Patriots.
I didn't want to, because Patriots sets them up as the good guys a little bit.
Yeah.
It has a connotation, and I didn't want that.
It's funny because that is a very American sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, not being American, I kind of look and I go, I mean, really, if you care about your society over any other society, that kind of makes you a patriot no matter where the fuck you are. It's not a wholly, like American thing. So that's why I like the Nationalists, the Centrals, all that kind of shit. It gave you, there was a much different flavor than like, I mean, if you have guerrilla warfare people who are trying to take the country back from a bunch of corrupt authoritarians who own it, both of those sides can consider themselves patriots.
Yeah.
Because they're patriotically trying to hold on to one certain ideal for that plot of land or whatever.
Yeah, the weird thing about the story is that there's no protagonist. I didn't want to establish good guys versus bad guys. I wanted things to be ambiguous and for people to question the nature of this conflict in and of itself. That's not that's not just two-sided. You know, it's multifaceted. The fact that there are
Mhm.
three different groups in this that are all vying for control and fighting for their own side. So it really it questions who is right here and who is fighting the righteous path and then all that jazz.
It's funny because I found myself picking a side as I went. I was like, I'm all about these guys. I don't remember. So when they were sitting down at the table, there was a man and a woman.
Yes.
I felt for the woman.
You felt for the woman.
Yeah.
She's a little bit more composed and rational. But you know, when you're writing a story, you have all this other stuff, backstory in your head that never gets explored. So my vision of who she is and what she's all about is might be a little different than a reader's because it's just the stuff that's in my head that was never really explored in the story is approaching her from a different way.
I think though that headcanon is so important, having that, because it gives everybody it gives the story this further flavor, and it allows you as a writer to kind of craft things in a way that you don't say your intentions exactly, but they come out in how the person speaks, in how they present themselves, all that kind of stuff.
It does flesh them out as real people and real characters and not stock characters, but it's a very delicate fine line, because if you throw in too much stuff that's like a callback to stuff that's not in the book, you're going to confuse your reader. So so it's like you got to be very careful as to how much you include of their personality in there. Like you can't say stuff about my baby is at home and I had to breastfeed him. It's like that has nothing to do with the story. People don't care about that. It's just gonna distract. So
did you ever read came out like 2018? Actually, he's had 3 issues now, but it was called Swords and Sorrows. It was by Connor Bartel.
No. Okay. But it sounds familiar.
So that one, when he brought it to me, as I was his editor,
it was like a samurai book.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I read an issue of it.
So it's solid, but when he brought it to me, he had this story of an assassin master and his pupil, and basically the pupil deciding, man, I need to get out of this assassin guild, and the only way out is by killing my master. And so, really interesting and great material. But when I read it, I was like, I actually don't necessarily give a shit for either of these characters. And more importantly, it feels very generic because you don't know anything about them. Like the writer didn't know anything about these characters. And he's like, well, how would I change that? And I said, you need headcanon. You and I should sit down and flesh out all this other stuff, and that will allow them, they'll have more distinct ways of speaking, that you'll understand why they do things that they do, and you don't have to tell people that stuff. But as long as now they have motivations, we understand why they do stuff, then all of that will make sense. And he was like, okay. And I feel, and he said it too, that it did help to make it a better book. But when we finished, he had created this headcanon for himself that he was like, well, now I just want to do more. I was like, I can be hired.
Some people go crazy. They have like journals, and they'll write their character's favorite food and their favorite color. It's like, that's a lot of work. I mean, it's good. It's just like how much time do you actually want to develop these guys into real characters? But it's so, there's so much work that goes into crafting a story that you might never see. And it's weird because Pipe Creepers, I was talking with a publisher about Pipe Creepers, and they say that the 2 main characters, they're basically they call them stock characters because they're not really fleshed out, which is true. The characterization in Pipe Creepers is very minimal, and the story is basically pushing them forward. It's mainly plot driven, and we don't see too much about who these guys are, but the banter between them is so personal that that people care about their stories. So even though you never learn anything about these, you don't know if they're married or if they're sick or what they really want. Since they talk to each other and they have this personal back and forth, it makes people feel for them in a weird way that they don't even really know much about them, you know?
That's cool. That's cool. And it's funny you were talking about. Oh,
it's weird that I was able to do that simply because they're based on real people. So I was able to lift a lot of dialogue that I've had with people on the job and place it in the story. So I guess that's why it feels realistic, because it is a lot of it's real. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's funny you were talking about that whole diary thing, and if you do out there, folks, I'll let you know, if you like all that extra stuff, the diary of the characters and all that. My wife has a book coming out in May called Viscarian Tales: Marauders Masquerade, and she wrote a prose. It's a 100-page prose book that takes place during that single issue. And she just went into all the extra stuff because at heart, she is a prose writer. And she realized in making this comics aren't necessarily, like, as a writer, comics aren't necessarily what I want to be doing or how I most enjoy writing. So she wrote it, and it's great, and we've all worked very hard, her beta readers and myself as the editor and everything. But then she was like, no, I want to tell all that other stuff that won't be told in the comic, all that extra. And I was like, go to town. And I think she, at the time, like when she first started kind of dabbling with it, it was just a fun exercise. And then suddenly she was like, no, this is going to be a novella. And that's what it is. It's finished. Now some lazy asshole has to edit that thing.
I get every once in a while I get the question of the difference between comics and prose, and they're so, even though there's a lot of similarities in storytelling, they're really so different as like a writer's exercise, you know?
Yeah.
I love writing comics, but there's something pure about the relationship between a reader and a prose writer, because the connection is so straightforward, you know? It's raw. It's basically my words are on the page, and that's what you're consuming, as opposed to being filtered through a medium like an artist.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you write a script, you're not writing to the audience. You're writing to your artist. Mm. Like, I've directly spoken to my artist in my script and said things like, hey, Greg, you're fucking awesome at this. Go to town, have fun. Just do your thing. And here's the mood. This is the general idea I want, and he'll go have fun. Whereas when it's prose, I have to go into all that stuff. I have to talk about the room and the different people around and all that sort of shit.
Yeah, you gotta. It's like as a writer, you're the composer, but at the end of the day, the conductor is the one that's controlling the orchestra and bringing the music to life.
She said the only similarity for me is they're both stories. That's it.
Well, the cool thing about being a writer is that, as I said, you have to be creative to tell your stories. So you don't need to limit yourself to comics. If you want to flesh out your world through a prose novel, you could do that. If you want to do like an audio drama, you could do that. You could do all sorts of things. It's just time and money.
Yeah. Oh, drinking is good.
Especially when you're sick. Can you tell I'm sick?
A little bit.
Yeah, I got the congestion. So.
You're sounding a little verklempt.
Yeah.
What kind of tea were you drinking earlier?
It was an Irish breakfast.
Oh, okay. Irish breakfast.
Yeah, it's a little stronger than English breakfast. Not that I prefer it. It's just my wife bought the big one from Trader Joe's, so I have like 150 tea bags to go through. So,
Irish breakfast.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's your favorite tea?
I like something called Lady Grey, which is like it's a little bit of a smoother Earl Grey.
Oh, okay.
So that's
I'm a big Earl Grey fan. I love the perfumey of an Earl Grey.
Yeah, so Lady Grey is it's not as robust as an Earl Grey. That's probably my favorite. But I like English breakfast, and Yeah, very
We're
funny,
trying to be
very-
good here, Braden, and there you do.
Mm.
Would you call yourself a tea drinker, or are you more of a coffee guy?
I'm totally a tea drinker.
Yeah, me too.
I don't really drink coffee. And you know, my wife, she knows me well. She got, for like Father's Day or something, she got me the whole getup of the actual ground tea leaves, and I forget what they're called where you put it in, so I get to make it like a real English person.
No, I feel you. I have one of those too. Actually, someone got me a sword. It's a little sword, and you fill it up with all the tea leaves, and then you put the hilt on, and you drop it in.
Yeah. People come here for writing. They're like, what the fuck are these guys talking about tea?
I know, we're talking about tea. Because it's fuel. It's creative fuel, people.
Why? Because we're just hanging out, shooting the shit. That's why.
and then if you wanted to check out a Kickstarter, it's down there.
Yeah, it'll be live for the next...
How are we looking?
An hour and 17 minutes.
How's it looking right now?
I don't know. I don't check it while I'm live streaming.
Okay, good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's movement. And if you guys out there want to check it out, go check it out. I believe I already bought my copy.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck.
Dude, of course.
Is your official name Charles?
Yeah.
I'm just Charles, so I'm going to refer to you as Charles from now on. Everyone calls you Chuck.
By all means, yeah. So I was born Charles. That was my grandfather's name. To differentiate me from him, I was called Charlie my whole life. And then when I started taking to writing and I wanted a sensation of someone who you would want to sit down and hang out with and talk about writing with. And I was like, Charlie feels a little more pretentious. And Chuck just felt like...
You wanted somebody to up Chuck with.
Yeah, fuck yeah, I did. Or fuck up Chuck, whatever.
Everyone asks me if my real name is Francis, but it's not. It's Frank.
It's just Frank? Nice. Wendy says, I'm a coffee drinker. My favorite was Italian blend from Maxwell House, but they stopped making it.
Aww.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, now she does breakfast blend. Yeah. I can't do the coffee every day, man.
I have coffee like every once in a while.
Yes. Well, and I don't even have coffee. I have the caramel macchiato bitch coffee kind of thing. Yeah.
Weak.
Oh yeah. Dude, I can't handle the energy level of a real coffee. I would bust a fucking wall down Kool-Aid Man style.
Oh,
and I mean, Wendy has seen me with mass amounts of caffeine in me. It's not a good look, man. Frank Jammin. What the fuck is that?
He's lying. Frank Jammin?
It's Frank Jammin.
Frank Jammin?
Okay. Dude, so I mean, what else is okay? So the Truce is finishing. What are we gonna see coming up next in Frank the Writer's world?
Hopefully, I'm getting a lot of questions. People are getting antsy about The Last Homicide Part 2.
Ooh, okay.
That was the detective story that I launched like a year ago, and I left it on a cliffhanger, so I have to finish the story. But it's been taking a while. Hopefully, that will be the next one.
Sweet.
I have a sequel to Polar Paradox. Artist is dropping some colored pages into my inbox every once in a while, so that should be coming up. Grim Space is getting a spin-off, so people enjoyed that book. That will be a lot of fun. I have a horror one-shot that's going to be very cool that I'm getting layouts for now.
Jeez. I
have a more stuff. No.
I mean,
you want me to keep going?
No, that's a lot, man. But here's the funny thing: a lot of us are like, "Oh, we're gonna do anthologies to make sure that we always have stuff out," and you've got to be like, "Oh, fuck anthologies! I don't have the time for short shorts."
It's true. I've stopped kind of looking for anthologies.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't know. It's
I feel like it would slow you down.
If I didn't have to worry about the pages, I'd be fine with it. If somebody said, Frank, I want you to write a 4-page script and just give me the script and I'll take care of producing it, I'll be like, that's awesome. But if I'm responsible for working with an artist, it just adds another layer of work that I'd rather not have to deal with. I have to worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
I'd rather be just script and done.
It's nice to have kids you don't have to watch. It's like being a grandparent. You know, you come over, you do fun things with them, and they're like, "Oh, I'm unhappy." You're like, "Yeah, that's why you have parents shit." And you ship them off to the parents, and you leave.
It also it's hard because my anthology buddy, Dan Scalisi, we've done a ton of anthologies together. He was also the artist for Grimspace. So if I want him to focus on future issues of Grimspace, I can't have him distracted doing 4 pages for this thing and 8 pages for this thing. So
Braden says that's because Frank just writes his own anthologies. Yes,
I mean, kind of
basically.
Basically.
Like your catalog is basically an anthology. Now I know you've got young kids and you don't do a lot of conventions, but are you getting in the headspace of at some point wanting to be able to hit conventions? Because your table would look amazing.
You know, 2020 was going to be my convention year. I was like, I'm dedicating myself to. I had a convention in like February of 2020, and then I had another one, a table booked for April, and that, of course, that year got blown up. And
well, what happened?
I don't know. Something happened where they just canceled all these conventions.
Lame.
But and then ever since then, I've kind of been like, conventions.
Maybe that was the world telling me something.
Yeah. You know what? I like conventions, but I don't like conventions.
Yeah.
Because I love talking with people about my work, like when they're walking by and they're interested. The problem is 90% of people that walk by aren't interested.
Yeah.
And you have to make them interested. And it's work. And it's hard. And it's not easy. And
I feel you there.
So, yeah, I would love to go to conventions if I wasn't by myself, maybe tabling with somebody. But right now, I'm just...
Oh, well, if you ever... Where are you based out of?
New York.
Okay.
I'm like half an hour away from the Javits Center where they have New York Comic Con. So that was kind of... I've gone to New York Comic Con a couple times. I never tabled, but I was able to get like a creator pass for Thursday and just kind of say hi to people. Because the Thursday is never as crowded as like Friday or Saturday.
Why don't I throw something cool by you then? Me and a buddy, we have a table at a Long Island Comic Con in November.
Ooh.
If I could hook you up with the deets on that, do you want to maybe see? You could just pick up a table right beside us. That way, the three of us could hang out together and fucking. I know the guy who runs it, so I have no doubt we could make that happen.
Sure.
All right,
making things happen live, baby.
Dude,
on there.
I love this shit. Yeah, okay. I'll hook you up with this guy, and we'll make that happen. Because I would love to do that, Frank. I'd love to fucking hang out with you, anyways. But I like the idea because whenever I do shows, I'm always splitting tables because I'm poor. it works out really well. I mean, I've been able to travel to some really good shows because I'm splitting. It's great.
There's a table that's at Mohegan Sun, the casino in Connecticut. There's a convention there that's very good. And I hear that it's good for like comic creators. But the problem is it always like falls on the weekend of my son's birthday, so I've never been able to go. Stupid kids always getting in the way of everything.
Braden, meet us out there, man. Meet us out there. We'll make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, no, fuck, I'd love, dude, yeah. Okay, I'll get you the info on that. I would love to do that. That'd be a lot of fun. Because, yeah, I love conventions. That's kind of my thing. I just enjoy, even when it's bad, the potential for it to turn good is still there. So I'm still excited.
I'm too much of a grumpy fuck to like people.
Yeah. I mean, I can be grumpy, but I even love people when they.
I worked in sales for a very long time, so I can turn on the charm when I want to. It's not my natural habitat, you know.
Right. Especially now that you've stepped away from it.
You know what my favorite convention was? Back when Insane Comics was still doing its thing, they had a booth at C2E2, which was a great show, and I liked it because I wasn't really responsible for anything. You know, I flew to Chicago. I stayed at my friend's place. I took an Uber to the convention. The booth was already set up. I walked in. I started selling my stuff, walking around. I left, go down Artist Alley to start saying hi to people. I didn't have to worry about the booth because they were running it. It was just like as a creator, I just got able to show up and try to sell my book and then leave. You know, I didn't have to.
That's the fucking life right there.
Yeah, so it was a great show. I hear of the big shows, that one's the most like comic oriented show.
Yeah,
and it wasn't.
That's what I've heard too.
It wasn't super crowded either. You know, it wasn't like super jam packed.
Well, how long ago was that?
2016, maybe.
Okay, yeah, because now they're saying it's a big one. I have three. So 3 of us have basically decided, hey, if we get a table, we'll split.
Mm-hmm.
So all 3 of us put in separate lotteries in the hopes that we get in. I'm just hoping like 2 or more of us don't get in. Then we're like, what do we do? What do we? Maybe try to get tables close to each other so we can turn our 2 tables into, like put the 2 tables together and split it between 3 people.
New York Comic Con seems like it's a lot of fun, but it's also 4 days. It's like seems like.
Have you done a 4-day show?
No.
Yeah, 4-day shows are rough because like when you do a 3-day show, you see it too where you're like, oh, the Friday usually isn't all that great because anyone who has a badge that says Friday, you can try to sell to them. But anyone who has a badge that says for the whole that says they're going to be there for the whole weekend, they don't give a fuck about you because they're just trying to scout the place out and find out what they're going to buy on Saturday or Sunday. But on a 4-day show, you have another day like that. So Thursday and Friday can be really fucking tedious. And basically, like, I find myself looking, do you have a Friday? Do you have a Thursday badge? Okay, cool. You, hey, man, what's going on? Come check me out, blah, blah, blah. And if they have it all weekend, you're not trying as hard.
Mm-hmm.
Until Saturday. And then you rip in there.
Yeah, some people love that, the convention energy. I'm just like... And also, I don't have a like an all ages book yet. Or Grimspace could be sold to kids. I guess Grimspace could, but back when it hadn't come out yet when I was doing conventions. Yeah. So it's like I'm scouting people, seeing if they're my demographic, and if they're like a dad walking by with their kids, I'm like, I got nothing for you. I'm sorry. Yeah. And that sucks when you're first starting out.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I'm lucky. I have such a breadth of different books I get to play with. I mean, obviously, because of my personal books, I'd rather sell to adults, but I've got Cat Dad and Supermom and stuff like that down there that I can sell to the kiddos, so there's options. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. If any of you guys out there have any questions for Frank or I, or have any crazy topics you want us to talk about, Frank, how long do you want to go for? We're at about an hour.
Just keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't... If you have questions, it doesn't have to be about comics. Could be grooming tips. You know?
I might not be the best one to answer those, but...
Me neither. My wife hates it. She says I dress like a hobo. I'm like, it's hobo chic. You know? It's the style. It's in. I have these sweatpants that are like frayed, and you could see through them. She goes, throw them away. I'm like, why? So I could buy new pants? They still like cover up the parts that need to be covered.
Right? I call mine comic creator couture because most of it is just like fucking comic shirts, and I have special con shirts just made specifically to have at conventions, and of course that's a good chunk of my wardrobe now. Like I have a shirt that says uh, please buy my comic because nobody supports my OnlyFans.
What are you watching, Chuck?
Ooh, what am I? Well, I mean, nothing big right now because usually I watch it with my wife. I did just watch. Okay, I just watched a movie on Netflix called Metal Lords, which was a lot of fun.
What is that?
Metal Lords.
Is it like heavy metal?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's basically a show about a couple teenagers who are, this pair of teenagers, they're best friends. One of them's a huge metalhead, and then one just kind of plays the drums in band. And they're trying to get a band together for the Battle of the Bands. And it's just kind of them going through, and of course, the one guy ends up meeting a girl, and just kind of getting through all of that before they finally get. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it because that's my kind of shit. I love comedy and I love metal. It worked for me. Wendy has a question for you, though. I see a Terminator poster behind you, Frank. Is that your favorite sci-fi movie?
No, not even close. But that is a rare poster. It's actually in, like, German. Let's see if I can.
Oh, wow.
Can I do this? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a German poster. This is a rare Empire Strikes Back Coca-Cola promotional poster. Let's see all my posters. That's just Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
That's autographed with Christian Bale and Heath Ledger.
Oh shit.
That's a good one. And then I got Spidey. That's Stanley, Topher Grace, and Tobey Maguire signed that.
From the greatest Spider-Man movie ever made.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Again, I watched all of the Spider-Man movies with my son leading up to watching No Way Home after it was digitally released. So I just watched Spider-Man 3 again. And it wasn't as bad as I remember it. I think it gets... You know what? I've learned to appreciate small parts of a larger bad movie, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
So there are definitely parts of that where you're like, this is awesome. Like the Sandman part when he's coming to life for the first time. That's a great sequence.
Yeah.
They CGI'd the hell out of that thing.
Right.
So.
No, I feel you actually. And I felt like Sandman was probably one of the best parts of that movie.
And then they botched the ending. Like he turned into a giant sand monster. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Spider-Man 3 in the last 15 years. But he like turns into a giant sand monster. He tries to kill everybody, and then Spider-Man's just like, "I forgive you," and then he floats away. Like that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that movie had a whole host of problems. But I learned to appreciate parts of it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it for what it is.
Kevin Gillette asks, "Do you have a follow-up coming to Travel Madness?"
I do not. I mean, technically. Technically, every Friday I post a new Drabble. So that would... I mean, I'm still writing Drabbles, and I said I would never do that again. But Drabble Madness was... For those who don't know what Drabble Madness was, I launched a Kickstarter campaign to write 100 Drabbles in the month of February. And I didn't want to come up with the ideas. So I had backers come up with basically a genre and a subject, and every day, every weekday, I would write 5 throughout the month of February, and then by the time February was done, I would have 100 of them, and I published them in an ebook called Drabble Madness. And it doesn't seem like a lot because if I'm doing 5 100-word stories a day, it's basically 500 words a day. That's not a lot. But if you're jumping back and forth from genres for every single story, my mind was fried.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine.
It's not just the writing of words. You have to think about the characters and the plots, and you have to get into the different headspace for romance and sci-fi and horror and comedy. It was just, I was like, it was a lot of fun. It was madness, and I'm not doing something like that
Would you instead just collect the ones that you've done and put them up?
I could hypothetically do
right?
that. I mean, I'm almost written 100 for my Friday Drabble posting, so I could collect them again and put them out there. But that kind of like concentrated batch writing of Drabbles was just, it was a lot. It was a lot more work than I anticipated.
It is impressive. Yeah, it's a lot of work, man.
So again, it was the challenge of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's something we can always go back to, and I like that, man. I like that about you. When he says, the only problem I have with Spider-Man 3 is the emo scene. I just cringe at watching anyone making a fool of themselves. I totally feel you. I have a tough one with that.
It was like weird choices. Like Gwen Stacy had no business being in that movie at all. She wasn't Gwen Stacy. She was just eye candy. She served a purpose just to make MJ jealous.
Yeah.
And you know what I took from watching that movie? I have to leave in about 50, but hope that clock strikes zero was a successful campaign. Thank you, Brian. Brian, he pledged.
Good dude.
I told him.
Oh, good.
Spider-Man 3, watching it under the influence made me realize what the movie is really all about, and I really got in tune with Peter Parker. So the whole concept of, I hated when I first watching it, the twist where Sandman was the guy who killed his uncle rather than the other robber. I did not like that twist. I thought it was like completely dumb. But watching it again, it made me realize that it freed Peter from the burden of being responsible for his death, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, okay.
So without that burden, does he really feel like he has this weight of responsibility on his shoulders anymore? And he didn't. So he was able to give into his anger that was amplified by the suit. So that was my crazy high brain kind of just going in circles about the movie.
That makes sense. I
looked at it from a different angle. I still thought like they missed the mark with what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But that was the way I was reinterpreting something that I hated before and to appreciate it a little bit more.
I feel you. My mom actually has a really good question. Good call, Mom. She says, I might have missed your comment, but is there kind of a snobbery about Spider-Man? Like the original is pure and the new ones are just to make money, like with Batman, and it matters, it's, I guess, etc. But yeah.
Is there a snobbery? I would say yes and no. I think there are people that are always going to be gatekeepers to what they consider the pure version.
Yeah.
And then there are other people like myself who appreciate each version for what it is and what it's not, you know?
Yeah.
I know people that hated the new version of Spider-Man because it's like teen Spider-Man, you know? It's like they turned they were like, the Vulture isn't who was the love interest in the first movie? It wasn't Betty Brant.
What, it was Mary Jane?
No, it was Homecoming.
Oh, Homecoming. Well, I mean, it was
Liz
MJ.
Allen. It was Liz Allen.
Oh,
was the love interest, and Vulture ended up being her dad. So people were like, "That's not Spider-Man," and I'm like, "Dude, they're making a different movie. Just just watch it and appreciate stuff for what it is, you know."
Yeah, I totally feel you there, man. And I think there is both a snobbery and also not. And I think that was actually the nice thing about the new movie, bringing all three of them together, is that we were able to see them as these different sides, kind of the same coin, and you can still go, I like them all, but this one's going to be my favorite. Like, actually, it's really nice seeing Andrew Garfield again because he got shit on real bad, and I enjoyed him as Spider-Man. I didn't necessarily enjoy his movies, but I liked him as Spider-Man.
He was a different Spider-Man. He was angrier. He was a violent Spider-Man, and because I just watched all those movies again, and I appreciated them all for what they were. And you're right, seeing them together in the new movie, it really Spider-Man fans needed that. They needed that coming together of the franchises, and I thought the movie was phenomenal. And I think it was a shame they didn't nominate it for Best Picture. At least give it, because it's a story and filmmaking aside, it was just such a it's been 20 years in the making. It was a monumental undertaking of filmmaking, just bringing all that together and making it actually work, you know?
Yeah, they definitely don't get the respect that they deserve. Wendy says, favorite Spider-Man movie, still Spider-Man 2. The train scene gets me every time.
You know,
gets me
I hate Spider-Man 2 because of the train scene.
Really?
I thought it was super cheesy and super corny. And
oh, wow. I literally tear up every time.
Sam Raimi, he really goes for the cheese factor with those movies. Like in the first one, when they're all throwing garbage at Green Goblin, and he's like, "You mess with New York, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." I'm like, like I didn't need that.
Would you catch yourself doing that?
So he really he leans into the cheese hard in those movies, and so Spider-Man not having his mask on, crowd surfing through the train, I was like,
yeah, I love that scene. But yeah,
that's the great thing about comic fans.
Right.
Everybody has their own tastes.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Wendy really loves the Tom Holland movies, which I do too.
You know what? I was just thinking that it's the only trilogy I could think of where each movie was better than the last one. Can you think of another trilogy that got better with each installment?
I think at one point I could, but I can't anymore. I can think of sequels that were definitely better than the one that came before them.
But trilogies.
Yeah, trilogies is tough. Though, look, I know a lot of people would not agree with me, but if we were, say, talking about Indiana Jones, I would say the third one is better than the first two that came before it, but obviously Raiders is better than Temple of Doom, so it doesn't quite work. I think Crusade was the best of all those movies, and I'll die on that cross.
It's fine. You're allowed to.
It's fine. I like that. Which is like the sweetest, least New York way of saying I disagree. I know you're a Crystal Skull guy. I get it.
I love introducing my son to all these old franchises. We watched all of the Indiana Jones movies a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So
my kids are not, have never been interested. It's so tough to get them into these movies.
My son was just watching Deadpool the other day. My wife walks in. She's like, "What are you having him watch?" I'm like, "He turned it on himself. I just walked in and sat down."
You were like, "I'd like to see that too."
But you know what? He's a big reader. He reads all the time. He loves stories. I watched Inception with him.
Oh.
Which is a little nuts. He's going to be 10 in August. So he's not.
Wow.
Yeah. So I said, this is going to be confusing. You're not going to understand a lot of things, but if you have a question, I will pause the movie and explain it to you.
Okay. And how'd that go?
It went fine. He liked it. Yeah. As soon as the movie's over, he went looking around the house for his totem.
That's pretty neat.
So he was into it.
Connie Jolette says, hello, late to the party again. Hey, you're here. That's all that matters. Into the Spider-Verse is my jam. Actually, that is it gets left, you don't think about it because it's animated, but yeah, that is a great movie.
I made a post after I watched that movie that when I was a kid, they would have never made a movie like that because it's so stylistic.
Yeah.
The animated movies, especially superhero animated movies when I was a kid, were so rigid. They had to be a certain thing. And that they just let them fly. It's total hip hop style. All the different universes have different styles with the different characters, and the story was completely bonkers. They wouldn't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
No, I feel you, man. Connie says, I agree. A lot of people have a potential to become gatekeepers because of nostalgia. I think nostalgia is a big part of that. I would agree with that.
You know what I think it is? People got too much time on their hands. I was doing shit like that when I was in college and I didn't have kids and my wife wasn't around all the time. Now I'm like, you think I got time to go on Twitter and like tell people that their opinions suck? I don't got fucking time for that.
Nope, and I don't want to give them that time anymore either. It ain't worth it. Brian Manell says, snobbery is pretty inherent among large fandoms. Look at Star Wars and even Star Trek. Yeah, among so many others, you'll always have a decent section of fans who only swear by the originals while loudly disliking some of the more modern stuff. Yes, I agree.
You know, but it at the same time, I hated the Star Wars sequels. I thought that they were not good. And people are like, you just don't like it because you're just like
a gatekeeper.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I thought they sucked. Like, I genuinely didn't think that they were good. So.
No, and actually, so I enjoyed some of the characters they brought in. I enjoyed some of the ideas and the stuff that they wanted to play with. But overall, you had 3 movies that were created by different people and they had no connection. No one gave a shit about a singular story and actually making it a trilogy. They were worried about their particular movie.
That was my big criticism too.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you want about the prequels, George Lucas had a clear vision from the beginning to the end.
And you didn't have to like it, but you see it. And you see it also when you see things like the Clone Wars TV show and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can see how all of that connects together, but that would be really difficult to do something like that with this newer era because there is no connective tissue, really. No. And creating that would be a lot of work, and it would be dirty and probably not fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the Mandalorian era of Star Wars because it's dealing with the ramifications of the originals, and eventually it's going to lead into the sequels, which I don't like, and at some point it's going to touch upon too much of the sequel territory that I'm going to be like, I don't want to keep it away. But I love that Reconstruction era feel to it, you know, that the dealing with the ramifications of the Empire's fallout, you know.
Though you do have like 20 years there, so hopefully the Mandalorian doesn't get too far into that before they go, okay, well, we're done.
Yeah. So,
what else do we have going on? Marvel's movie versions of the comics are like impressionist paintings. It is Marvel movies vision. Yeah, it's a separate vision. Planet of the Apes, Brian says. Maybe the new trilogy. I haven't seen the last one, sadly.
New trilogy's pretty good.
I liked it. I liked the first 2, and I felt like 2 was better than 1, so I'd be interested in watching the third and see if that all works out.
You know what? I think it's too close. Like, they're all too close in quality. I don't think I could have a clear winner where I could say one was better than the other.
Okay. But that even more makes me want to watch the third.
But that's a good one. I'm surprised he pulled that out of his ass.
Right? Yeah, it was a good one. Especially for someone who's supposed to be running out the door to go to work. Connie says, but yeah, all big pop culture stories should be given a chance to grow. Maybe they are not all great, but give it a chance.
I'm totally of that philosophy.
Yeah.
People say, stop rebooting Batman. I'm like, Batman's cool. Like, let people try their own version of Batman. You know?
You know what? So here's the thing. I didn't watch The Batman.
I haven't seen it yet. I want to. I just don't have it. I haven't had the chance to.
I didn't watch it because I personally am Batmaned out. And I'm not saying, fuck you, don't make any more. I'm just saying, look, I've had enough for now. I'm not along for the ride. I've heard good things, and I'll probably check it out at some point. But at this point, I'm not interested. And I think my other issue is that I love what Marvel's doing where things are connected. And so just constantly seeing new Batman, I'm like, but what are you going to do with it? Like, it's just like, it's like finding a new girlfriend every other week. You know, like I have a wife. I don't need that.
I feel that way for Batman in the comics. You know, they really just throw him on every single book. You know,
Right? Like Wolverine,
they've
whom
been
I'm a huge fan of, but same thing.
they've been doing this. They're really milking Joker too.
Yeah.
Joker's got a whole bunch of different series that he's and you know what? There are I'm happy Marvel is exploring some of their lesser known characters. Shang-Chi got a movie. Uh, Moon Knight is getting this TV show, so I'm glad that they
Yeah.
feel confident enough in their stable of characters to take shots like this.
Yeah. Mom says, "Thank you. I like how the different actors bring a different spin to the character. Not a purist at all. No, my mom never really read the books. Deadpool's my guy. I love that Deadpool's your guy, by the way.
My son was Deadpool for Halloween, and because he was Deadpool for Halloween, my 4-year-old also wanted to be Deadpool for Halloween. So I had two Deadpools running around.
Oh, that's cool. Did you ever? Is your youngest female?
My youngest is boy. I have boy, girl, boy.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say you could have done Gwenpool or something like that. Had some fun.
Lady Deadpool. You know what?
Yeah.
Lady Deadpool gave me an idea. In
Oh.
that we always see female versions of male characters. But do we ever see a male version of a female character? Like, do we ever have like a Wonder Woman where it's an island of men, and then they go, he ventures out into the real world, like, you know that?
That's a really good question because now I'm trying to see if I can think of one. Jeez, I'm not. I just keep thinking of females who take over male mantles, but not the other way around.
We have female Peter Parkers and female Bruce Waynes. Do we have a male Carol Danvers? Ken Danvers?
Right? That would be fun. Yeah, that's a neat idea, dude. Kevin says it's normally the second movie that is rushed to capitalize off the first. Yeah, true story.
I think there were tons of sequels that are better than the originals.
I mean, you've got one on your wall, Terminator 2.
Yeah. Again, James Cameron, Aliens.
Yeah.
It's a different movie. I wouldn't call it better, but it really all depends on who's making it. You know, that's really what it comes down to.
Yep. In horror movie franchises, the third one usually screws the pooch.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I don't watch a lot of horror movies. I've written a fair amount of horror. I was just talking about that today, but I don't watch a lot.
You know what? The third Nightmare on Elm Street movie is really good.
No.
Yeah, the second.
Is that Donnie Depp or was Johnny
Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp.
Donnie Depp. Johnny Depp.
I haven't even smoked yet.
He was in the first one.
Oh, okay. Wendy says, I thought the animated style of Spider-Verse was going to detract from the movie for me, but it absolutely, it didn't. It really added to it. Especially when you had all the different, like you had a manga Spider-Man and you had Spider-Pig or whatever, Spider-Ham and all that kind of shit. And they kind of played around with the animation style with those different characters. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun with it. After the Spider-Verse event in the comics, they had a short-lived series called Web Warriors, which is basically like Spider-Man interdimensional police force that would go to different dimensions and do what needed to be done. And they did that with when they went dimension hopping. Like each dimension was a different art style, cool. which was kind of cool too.
And they kind of had something like that with Exiles, mm-hmm. which was basically like an X-Men style thing where they had usually X-Men, but it ended up being other Marvel characters who they were traveling from different dimensions trying to fix things up and whatnot, which is, I like that series a lot, actually.
I've heard good things about it, but I've never...
Yeah, it was a good one.
Never did it myself.
Mom says, that's what I figured. I didn't like the Star Wars sequels either. Good job, Mom.
You know what? I liked the last one, Rise of Skywalker. You know what? I didn't like it, but I enjoyed it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I felt like when I went in, I felt like I watched a Star Wars movie. I got to see them go to different planets and have lightsaber battles and have big space battles. I thought the movie was dumb. The story made no sense, but I enjoyed the spectacle of it.
Yeah, I liked The Last Jedi because the story being told was kind of told in a sentimentality that I enjoyed.
I did not like The Last Jedi.
And I get that, and it wasn't necessarily good for the Star Wars world, but or universe. But I did just enjoy the sentimentalities and the way that Ryan looked at that world.
I didn't like the plot of it all. It was a slow moving car chase. That was the entire movie essentially. Yeah. It didn't. You know what? Star Wars to me feels like an adventure. This didn't feel like an adventure.
Yeah.
Like they didn't go to different planets, and they didn't like.
They went to at least one. They went to that like casino world and shit.
It felt very small in its scope, and that to me, Star Wars is expansive, and I didn't get that feel for it.
Brian says, surprised he pulled that out of his ass. Yeah, back when I was watching movies relatively often. These days, I hardly watch movies anymore. Don't have the time. Yeah. Also, I'm about to leave. Are you about to leave for work? Because look, here's even more shit from you. We might be on. We're not sure. We'll see how it goes, bud. But if not, it was good seeing you. Morbius was not a typical Marvel superhero movie. Did not watch it.
I have not seen it. I mean, I do. It's just getting to the theaters is difficult.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Small screen. Yeah, what's up, man? Good to see you, man. Empire. That's Wendy's hot take that Empire was the best one.
I enjoyed Empire. Everybody likes Empire.
Yeah. Actually, I loved Rogue One.
Rogue One is great.
Yeah.
Rogue One is really great.
I like to tell people that I believe that Rogue One was created out of them noticing one empty chair. If you notice and I'm not going to remember all the names and shit, but when you watch the original A New Hope, towards the end, the Empire is all like kind of around that table and talking with Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader and all that, and there's one empty chair. And it just so happens that it's the director who is trying to make sure that they're not taking the Bothans aren't taking the plans and all that kind of stuff. So that was really interesting that empty chair was something that played into creating an entire movie.
That was the seed.
Yeah, I like to think that way. Yeah, because it was. I mean, there was one chair that was empty, and it's like, why, when you made that first movie, when you didn't even know if you were going to make more, was there one empty chair? And so it's just a fun thing to go. I mean, that's kind of how you and I think, right? Where you see that one thing and you go, why was that one fucking chair empty? And then you make a movie.
Yeah. I watched, I had an interesting experience watching that with my son, and he knows that this is a prequel. So he says, how come we don't see any of these characters in the later movies if it's a prequel? And I said, well, let's watch it and find out. And he's like, and then they start dying one by one. And he's like, so that's why we don't see this guy. That's why we don't see this guy. And and I see the gears churning in his head. They're all gonna die. And it was kind of cool to have that experience with him.
I remember my we were watching episode 3. Revenge of the Sith, and Anakin walks in and sees the younglings there, and the kids have kind of watched the movies and know what's going on, and we watch that, and my youngest at the time quickly grabs the remote and pauses it, and I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "If we don't play the movie," and I think he was like 6 at the time, and he goes, "If we don't keep playing the movie, the younglings never die." I was like, That's a really cool way of thinking about it.
Schrodinger's younglings.
Right,
They're both
exactly. It's like
alive and dead at the same time.
that's it, dead on. Schrodinger's younglings, exactly. They're not dead yet, but they're dead. Like, there's no world where those kids got out of there, man.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Obi-Wan series like everybody else.
Yeah. I have not seen any of the commercials for it because the guy who draws circles. Good to see you, homie. And we're just talking, man, so you can talk about whatever you want. We're just chatting about movies. Hell, we're not even talking.
We were talking about tea earlier.
Right? We're not talking about the fact that Truce is going to be done in about an hour and a half on Kickstarter, or in about half an hour on Kickstarter, and then it's almost done. We're not talking about that at all.
Yeah. The weird thing about me is that when I go on shows, the last thing I want to do is talk about my work.
Which is so funny. I mean, I built my show around how I want to do an interview. And that is, I want to go, I want to talk, I want to connect with people. I'd like to be able to talk about the craft and things that interest me and all that kind of stuff. And then every once in a while, throw a little plug out there. Hey, by the way, I got this thing happening.
Every once in a while, I got this thing that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen constantly.
That's because I know you won't talk about it, so at least I'll let it talk about it for you, and you don't have to worry about it.
Awesome.
Is it throwing off your anxiety?
Set it and forget it.
I like that. Chuck is big on panel shows. It's easier on him. I mean, is that wrong? It's true. And notice how Frank got his own show. He didn't have to do a panel show. It's just Frank and I. Yeah. It's because he's that big. He's now had 2 full shows. Just him and I. Stop. Steph is still waiting for his second show.
Stop filling up my head. You're blowing it up.
Steph has one coming up. Because he cried. He came to me and he said, I don't just want to do panel shows. I want to hang out. All right, fine, whatever.
I want Chuck all to myself.
Apparently, our very first episode was Steph, and I think he's mad because his wife was there too, and I think now he's just like, I want one just me. Like, good. If I have to do one just with you, that means I get to do one just with your wife, and that'll be a good episode. It'll be worth having to deal with you by yourself. Sean, the Frank and Chuck show. Yeah. Sean says, faux show, gotta have fun with it. Yeah, man. You do. By the way, Tom, we gotta have you on the show sometime.
That's something that doesn't get talked about enough in comic Facebook groups and comic circles is guest etiquette on a show.
Oh,
because I've had podcast guests talk to me, and they're like interviewers or people that have their own shows. They're not stupid. They know when somebody has a Kickstarter, they're going on. Oh, they're doing the Kickstarter circuit. They're going on different shows, and so you gotta know what type of show you're going on, how to act. How to respect the host. And sometimes people just want to push their stuff and talk about their own stuff. And there's only so much you could talk about the same thing over and over again on every single show. And there's only so many questions that a host can ask, like, where's your inspiration? How old were you when you started writing? All the basic foundational questions. So, yeah, people don't talk enough about creators going on shows and how to act and how to respect their host and all that jazz.
So I have a list. What are some of the kind of the no-nos that you would say you've seen about going on a show for anybody out there who's going to be doing the circuit?
I would say if you want to plug your work, it has to come up naturally. Stop gearing the conversation towards yourself and the Kickstarter that you have on. If the host wants to talk about Cinnabon, talk about Cinnabon. They're the host, you're the guest. How would you act in somebody's house?
Yeah.
So,
I would say another one that I notice a lot, especially when we were talking about panel shows. I remember doing a panel show, and this made me so mad. There's several of us on the show, and There's several of us on the show, and one guy who has a Kickstarter that's happening like 4 months from now, and we're trying to talk about our show, about our books, and he continually came in and he's like, "Oh shit, I wanted to show you guys this guy. Oh shit, I wanted to talk about that," and I'm like, "Shut the fuck up!" And it wasn't even like, sometimes it wasn't my turn, and I'm just like, "Shut the fuck up and let that guy give his fucking pitch and talk about his shit." Like, holy fuck.
That's another thing. Whenever I'm on a panel, I make a conscious effort to engage not just with the host, but with the other guests. You know, keep it a round table. You stop putting it all on the host's shoulders. You know,
Yeah.
you could ask them questions too. You know,
Yeah.
make it an organic conversation.
Steph says, "What's your origin story?" Yes, that's one of my questions. Get over it. Don't worry, Steph. I probably won't ask you again. And I didn't ask Frank today because I know it. Lewis says, "If you want to fund your work, don't mention Jizz Be Gone." I would bet that's a Kickstarter that's happening right now by a buddy of ours, and yeah, that would be one I probably wouldn't mention on another show. Sean says, "And formats to the show as well." Yeah. Steph says he'd still be an ass, as you should be. Lean into your gimmick, dude. That's what you do.
Well, you know what? That brings up an interesting question, is that you have to have, I don't want to say like you have to have personality, but you can't be stiff. You know, you gotta, if you gotta take a couple shots before you get on, like, fine, but you can't just, like, if they ask you a question, you just say no. You can't. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit extrovert. You know.
I came onto a show late recently. Because there was a bunch of other people on there and I had stuff going on, but I showed up late for the show, popped in, I'm like, "Hey guys, so good to see you, blah, blah, blah." And the host instantly was like, "Whoa, okay, here's some energy." And I'm like thinking, what were these other people doing in this show that you're excited about my energy? Like, it made me want to go back and watch the previous, half hour or so that I wasn't on there. But also I was like, if he's excited about my energy, I probably don't want to watch that previous half hour.
Well, that's another thing, is that when you're going on a show for the first time, let's say you cold email somebody that has a show and you say, "Hi, I got a new book, I'd like to come on." They say sure. If they don't know anything about you, they're taking a chance. They're going to say, "I'm bringing this guy on. I hope he's good for my show. I hope he's not like got some stick up his ass." So it's like you're going on a date for the first time, and you got to break that ice to let them know that you're not gonna, like, leave your show with dead air, you know?
Yeah.
So especially if you don't know the person, just if you set them at ease in those opening moments, it could set the tone for the whole show.
Yeah. I would also say, have an idea of what, even, like, especially when it's about your own project, have an idea of the kind of stuff you want, like your answers and whatnot, because you have an idea, you know kind of the sort of questions that people are going to ask. But I remember watching one, it was a book that I was tangentially a part of, but luckily I'm not credited on that book at all. But somebody asked the person, what was your, what was your inspiration behind this book? And he was just like, "Oh man, I just wanted to tell a really cool science fiction story. I didn't even give a shit. I just wrote." And it was just all about the art and doing really cool shit with the art. And I was like, you need to shut the fuck up, because no one wants to buy that book.
Yeah.
You don't care about the story. Why the fuck would anyone else? And at that point I was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not on that book, because I would be reaming that person out or telling them, "Yeah, don't hire me again because we're not working together." That was fucking embarrassing.
Yeah, one of the sad things about being a creator is you can't just be a creator. If you're pushing your work and you're selling it, you also have to be a salesman. And I know that's tough for a lot of people. You don't, and if you have somebody do that for you, that's great. But if you're going on a show, you're assuming that role, and you gotta at least make attempt at knowing what you're talking about, knowing about your product, you know?
Yeah, that's why, like, when Eric and I will go on to talk about Essence House, he's like, "Man, I love having you there because you have the energy that I don't have." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, like I'm glad to pull that part, because he does a lot of stuff that I can't do. So perfect. I don't mind helping that." Wendy says, as a commenter, I have to say it's very frustrating watching a show and the host never paying attention to the comments, or they only bring up certain people's comments. You're lucky I even mentioned that one.
I've never hosted a show, so I have no idea.
I see it a lot, though. Well, and I'll even see it because maybe sometimes I'll have both screens out, so I'm talking to my phone, but my laptop is out, and you can see the comments going. I'm like, that would have been cool to talk about. That would have been cool to talk about. Why aren't we asking about that? Like, and sometimes I'll even be like, hey, Dickface69 had a really good question here. He asked blah, 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 and then you go into it just because you're like, look, if you're not going to do your job, I'm going to do it a little bit because that was interesting.
Yeah. When you have that, when you are not wearing that host hat sometimes, that it drives you crazy.
Then you feel like you have to wear it. Yeah, absolutely. Wendy says, I probably won't watch that podcast again. Yeah, no doubt. Read the room. It's my room. I don't have to read shit. Sean says, Chuck hasn't had me on because I'd definitely be stiff. You're stiff now just watching this, dude. Yeah, you would probably finish in the first minute and then just be there like smoking a cigarette for the rest of the hour.
There's a reason you can't see the bottom half.
Yeah, right. Keep the camera above the waist, homie. Chuck has made a career out of tangential. Yeah, I won't even lie. The more you can make sure you benefit the show, the more the show will put forward. Yes, 1,000%. That's why I tell people we're in the entertainment business, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's another big one. Is that when they give you a link, especially like if it's pre-recorded, to share that shit. That's your job.
Yep.
They did you a favor by having you on. The least you can do is give a shout out for it.
Yeah, and I hate when they don't share it. Now, if like tonight, I didn't have anything set up ahead of time, so we just went. It didn't, and actually, you still went above and beyond and said, "Hey, that fucker Chuck is going to have me on tonight, so let's do this shit." And I was like, "Great, yep." Try going on a show when you don't have a project to plug. Steph, I'm the same as you. When do you not tell me what day of the week you don't have a project to plug? Because that's not a thing. I have fucking 4 things on crowdfunding right now, and every time one drops off, another one comes back on. I don't have that. That's not a luxury.
I have some people that I say, I have 5 projects launching a year. Like, do you want me to hit you up every time? And some people say, yeah, no problem. I'd love you. Come back on. And other people say, yeah, let's wait another 8 months.
I'm that guy. Yeah. Yeah, I had someone come to me and he goes, yeah, I have 5 projects showing up this year. I'd love to get a spot for each one. And I said, no. And the reason for that is I only do an episode a week. So that means there's 52 episodes, which means, and usually I have specialty episodes in there too. So really I have 50 or less, which means you want 10% of all of my episodes. No, it's not fair to everybody else. It's not fair to the show. And when I told the person that, they're like, oh shit, absolutely. I totally get it. And they understood and it was great. But yeah, like if I only have a finite amount of shows, having you on 5 times in a year just isn't a great idea.
You know, at the end of the day, the same rule applies pretty much to everything else, which is don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a question, ask somebody. But then if you don't like their response, don't be a dick. You know?
Yeah, it's their thing. Move on. Yeah. The Truce pages look great. Hakan is a terrific artist.
Yes, he is. He was very professional, and pages were great, and he turned them around fast. And he does a lot of work for Zenescope, he's always posting like Zenescope-y stuff. Yeah.
No, and that was one thing I really did like the art for that book. I think that book art-wise is probably one of your best.
Mm-hmm. It fit the story very well too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you know, each book is always going to have its own feel. Like Belial is not necessarily going to be Zenescope style art, and it's not meant to be. It shouldn't be. You wouldn't be doing that book justice if you tried to do that, I think.
That's another little thing that comic creators have to understand is just because somebody's a big name, expensive artist doesn't mean that they're gonna be the right fit for your book. You really gotta feel it out and know who's gonna be right.
Oh fuck! Look at this guy. I literally, I deserve those 10% of shows now. Have me on 5 times. You barely asked to be on. I almost have to beg you to come on my show. Shit. Wendy says 16 minutes to success.
Is that how much time is left? Yeah,
I guess so. See, he's literally not paying attention, guys. Which I have respect for you because I'm the anal asshole who I do my own show. Like when we did Belial 2, Sean was up fucking at an ungodly time in the morning before work, and we were working that crowd, getting every fucking penny out we possibly could.
Hey, I'm here, aren't I?
You are. You
almost tried to kick me off. Chuck was messaging me before I got on. I was like, you still want to do this?
You still want to do this? Well, because, of course, the worry was it might not fund. And I was like, hey, it funded. You're fine if you don't want to do this. And he's like, no, I want to hang out. All right, cool. We'll do that.
Yeah, I had already made my tea. What do you think? I had to, you think I was going to pour it out?
Right? Steph says, whoa, professional artist. I should try that. I don't know if there's any way you can go back to that, buddy. I just don't know.
You laugh, but it is a big problem. A lot of artists are not communicative. They kind of they don't respond, or their stuff is late. So having somebody that makes your life easier and removes the stress off your plate goes a long way. So true.
And if you guys, as we're closing this out and whatnot, if you guys have any questions or any subjects, again, we're not necessarily fully, doing a writer episode, as a certain dickhead would say. So if there's anything you guys want to chat about, we've been pretty open. We've talked about tea and movies and all sorts of crazy shit. So whatever you guys want.
We're just hanging out, really.
We are hanging out. Yeah, and I know if anybody else, hey, Tyler, if you're bored, you want to come hang out, pop in, by all means. Let me know. I'll give you the URL. You can come bug us.
I already spoke to Tyler's annoying ass.
You've had enough of him?
No, it's always fun to chat with Tyler.
He's a show, because you guys came up together in Insane Comics, so he's a show you most always do, right?
I've been on his show all the time. He's, when you say go on a show when you don't have anything to plug, I've been on Tyler's show when I haven't had anything to plug.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do a show and we would stream for an hour, and then the show would end, and then we'll just still hang out for like another hour and a half.
Done. Yeah, that's my favorite part of doing these shows. A lot of times is the afterwards hangout. Absolutely. Steph says panel shows suck. Discuss. I don't agree.
Panel shows, they can just be annoying when you have a lot of people, because they're hard to organize, especially if the people aren't familiar with each other. It could be, the structure can be really rigid, and you could feel the tension, as opposed to people that are all buddies.
Yeah, I guess if we're talking about it seriously, I would say when a panel show is good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's really bad. Like, because it doesn't take much to make it suck. People talking over each other, childish arguments, people just staring at each other, not knowing who should answer or what should be said. Like, there's all that kind of shit. Yeah.
I've been on good ones. I've been on bad ones.
Oh yeah.
It's also when you say something really dumb, and you're only with another person, you can kind of like, that other person can recover. But if you have like 4 other people that are looking at you like, what the fuck did you just say?
They're on you. Absolutely. No, it's so true. Oh man. How you feeling?
It's especially if you, because I've done panels that are like full of novelists. So if I start talking about comic books, they'll look at me like, we don't know what you're talking about.
Oh.
Like, that's another thing. I made, or it's not just comic books. I made a comment about Captain America, and they just didn't like understand what I was saying because if you don't, they just like what I said was Captain America doesn't have like character growth. You know what? It's like Captain America's strong suit is that he's righteous and he sticks by those convictions, and it's just the world around him and he's going through it. And people that read Captain America or that in that world, they understand what I'm saying, but they were like, I don't get it. What are you talking about? He's perfect? Are you saying Captain America doesn't have any flaws? I'm like, that's not what I said. But it's like there was a disconnect there.
No, and I actually would very much agree with that statement too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Luis Torres says the only suggestion I have for the Truce is that it needs a CB Zane and Seth Wilson variant available. Other than that, great work, sir. I mean, Seth Wilson's got to be better than that Steph Wilson, guys. So yeah, I would check that out.
I'm not a big variant guy.
So I don't like. I own a couple, but I don't own any. But one thing I learned after, like, I did my first comic, Welcome to the Void, and I had 0 variants, and then I learned people want them though. It doesn't fucking matter what I want; the fans want them. And so then when we came up with Belial and we had one variant, they were like, "That's not enough." And then we came up with issue 2. And we had 4, and they're like, all right, now you're starting to get out there. Let's keep going. Like, okay, fine.
I mean, we could do an entire show just talking about variants and the philosophy behind it. And hey, one of the main things, and this is not just with variants, this goes for everything, is that as a salesperson and a creator, you have to step outside yourself and say, just because I wouldn't want something doesn't mean somebody else would want something. That goes beyond variants. That could go to anything. But the reason I don't like it is because when you're selling a different kind of product, you know?
Yeah.
When you're just selling, when you have one book and you have a standard cover, you're selling that comic, you know?
Yeah.
But when you throw a variant cover on it and you have a scarcity to it, or you're setting a different price point for it, you're no longer just selling a comic. You're selling a collectible, something that's completely different. So it's a different headspace that I don't like pushing, but it's part of the game. So
yeah,
and I had fun with it this time. I had 3 different variants. 2 were by local artists who I know, and because I had 3 variants and 3 factions, so each variant is a different faction, is focused on a different faction. So it kind of fit with the theme of the book.
That. Well, and sense. I like when you were talking about that. It's the same as, like, you know, even when you're using variant artists, it might be like, man, I don't necessarily enjoy this artist's work, but I know that their work sells, they do well, and that fans like them. Speaking of that, Steph Wilson says he says Captain America, not Wolverine. Hey, dude, if you mention Wolverine, you know we're going to talk about him, and you don't want me talking about him, so don't mention him. Be smart. Wendy likes the variants because she likes variety. I feel you there. I get that. Dogs, don't start shit. You can lay down and chill. No, you can lay down and chill. And you too. Fucking dogs.
My dogs are upstairs. I gotta let them out when this is all done. What, we got 9 minutes left? Yeah, well, let's run this home.
You want to just be done, or do you want to go do the next 10 minutes?
Let's do the 10 minutes. Fine. Why not?
Okay.
We can't
I'm down for it.
You can't go 2 hours and an hour and 51 minutes and be like, yeah, I think we're gonna call it quits.
No, I'm good. I'm good for it. I'm good for the whole time. You got me, man. I'm in. So, guys, you got it for at least 10 minutes or at least 9 minutes. So, what else do you guys want to talk about? Is there anything else going on? What about you, Frank? Is there any hot takes or any stuff you've wanted to get off your chest or whatever?
No. I got this new microphone to make myself sound pretty.
Is that the blue?
It's blue, yeah. It's a blue Snowball, I think it's called.
My kids got that. I got them that exact same one, and I'm thinking about stealing it at some point.
Well, you know what it was? I was listening to a replay of a show that I did once, and there were two hosts, and they both had like high tech equipment, so they sounded good. And then I talked through my computer mic, and I sound like an asshole. So I was like, I can't. It's like that's what I sound like.
That's where I'm at almost every show right now.
So like I gotta up my game a little bit. And this was
I
simple.
feel ya.
It was cheap at Staples, and you don't have to no programs or drivers. You just plug it in, and you
Yeah.
just start talking.
Raven asked the question we've all been wondering: male frontal nudity in penguin porn, yes or no?
No.
I just, in general, don't agree with censorship. So, if it's already porn, just be porn.
Okay.
Right?
I don't have anything witty to say. I don't know. I came up blank.
Well, that would make for a bad porn.
Yeah, No, it's softcore penguin porn.
Oh, see, if it's softcore, that's a different statement. And now we've got a
completely different genre.
Yeah.
Softcore penguin porn.
Yep. And that
untapped market.
Right? And that's why, like, Sean Barbour, who was talking earlier, he can't do softcore anything because as soon as he comes out, he's hard. He doesn't have a choice. So, yeah. I get that. It's always the best. My comedy teacher always told me, any chance you can go back and touch upon anything else that you've talked about earlier in the conversation, you always seem like a genius. And I'm like, yeah, but we're talking about porn, so I don't feel like that much of a genius.
You know what? Speaking of porn, you know what I like to do sometimes?
Wow, I want to hear this.
Sometimes when my wife and I are
intimate?
No. We're on our computers and we're on our laptops and we're doing
Okay.
work. And we might be like at the same table sitting beside each other. I'll just start watching porn and see how long it takes her to notice. She'll just look over, she'll do a double take. She'll be like, yeah, what the fuck are you watching?
Right.
I had to take a break. What do you want from me?
That's like fucking. There was a Family Guy where Peter's like curled up pretending to watch sports or whatever, and she's like, "What are you watching?" And he's like, I'm just watching the game." And she's like, "You put it up on the TV. It's obviously porn." He's like, "Good, then shut up. I'm almost done." Steph wants the Penguin Balls variant cover. You got to draw it, dude.
Yeah, you're
Raven
an artist.
says, wait.
What do you? I could describe it for you, but I can't. I don't think that's fun.
This is the Frank Martin.
I mean, no, not really. There are other Frank Martins.
Are there, though?
Yeah,
Can you name any?
Yeah. There's a Frank Martin that's a basketball coach, a college basketball coach.
Oh, shit.
There's Frank Martin, the transporter, who's Jason Statham's character. There's Frank Martin, who's a Brazilian comic colorist who's actually done a lot of famous work that I get confused for a lot.
That's a good way to get confused, by the way. Like,
it kind of is. People tag me on Instagram. They just Google like Frank Martin, or they might Instagram search Frank Martin and say, "Oh, Frank Martin comics. This must be him." I'm like, my name is Frank the Writer. That's literally my handle. I don't know why you think that I colored this book. I've been at a convention where a guy, an older guy, who like resembled he looked like a guy who lived in his mother's basement, but he was like 50. And he comes by with a cart, and he's got a huge stack of books. And he goes, "Wait a second, you're a writer?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're not the colorist, Frank Martin?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Well, this is great. I brought all my books here for him to sign." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I have books here if you want to check them out." And he goes, "No, I only like Avengers books." And he walked away. I'm like, you're a fucking asshole.
That is. I've had those people, though, where like they'll come by and you'll be like, "What kind of books do you like?" And they're like, "I like Deadpool." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't written him yet. However," like, you know why I'm asking the question. You could say at least like, "I enjoy comedies." Great. Okay. Well, then I do have something for you.
This guy was like purposely going out of his way to be a dick. I was like, do you want to take my card? You could just take my card and just check it out later. He goes, no, don't bother, save it. I'm like,
ugh, yeah, and at that point, you don't even want them reading your fucking shit.
No. I'm like, dude, this guy lives in Brazil. This is a comic convention with 200 people. I don't think he flew up here to table here to sign your books. Like,
right?
It wasn't worth the plane ticket.
That's fucking funny. Wendy says, I get a lot of people message me on Facebook because they think I'm an artist just because I post pages from my book, even though I credit the artist in the post. Josh says, I've dealt with dicks like that. I get really nice, like so nice that they get confused and then I send them on their way.
Well, you know what? When you're at a convention and you're there for like 8 hours, you gotta do something to pass the time, so it's nice talking with people. Just
I feel you. Hey Josh, I hope your show went well tonight. He did a show with some of the people from Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, so
yeah. Travis asked me if I want to be part of that or be in the next one, and I was like, I'm not doing the anthology thing anymore. But I'm in the production group, so I see all the that's
posts. Funny. That's so funny.
I know. I'm not in any of the stories, but I see all your posts.
Oh, that's hilarious. There is a Stephen Wilson pro NASCAR driver. Oh, I didn't know that. But I mean, I love how you're not talking to us about the other Luis Torreses out there. You're so excited about Steph. You're so gaga. You're just like, oh, my boy Steph, he can also be a NASCAR driver. It was fun to read.
We're all done. I see all the confetti.
Oh, okay, cool. How'd we do? Oh, yeah. See, Wendy said it too. Confetti, congrats.
Yay.
How'd we do, Wendy?
217 backers. Your project has been successfully funded.
That's a solid number, dude.
Yeah.
I think when you get to certain points in your career, there's certain numbers that you want to be breaking every time.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a rough one.
Yeah.
This was a rough one. And you know what's weird is that all of my metrics were pretty much the same, which hits harder because it's basically meant that people were checking out the page and just deciding that it wasn't for them.
That's rough.
Which is hard because it's a positive and negative because at this one time it's like, you don't like it, you're not going to give it a shot. But then it's like, they haven't read it yet, so they're not saying like the story is bad. They're just saying that it doesn't look like something that they want.
Right, that maybe it's not their genre or whatever.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm glad I got funded, and you know, it's these past couple days when I was struggling to hit that goal. I got a lot of support from the indie comic community, which was amazing.
I saw that actually.
So the fact that so many people were rallying around me and wanted to see me succeed, filled me with joy.
I even saw some people that I didn't know that you were all that connected with, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that you knew him that well. That's cool.
Yeah, so I had a lot of people help pushing me and wanted to see it come out on top, which was awesome, which was nice. It was unexpected.
Yeah. Josh says, I understand that right now. It's good that what you're doing is getting attention, but it's hard to take the nose. Yeah. But it's part of the job.
It is part of the job, and it's something that I have to accept launching so many different projects, you know? I don't really build that momentum like some people. So it's I have to take that shot with every single new project. It's like I'm starting from scratch. So
yeah,
and I fully understand that. So it's not like I can be mad at myself for making that decision.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could be, but you're like, nah. The decision was made, and I'm happy with it.
What does Kevin Joseph do? He does Tart, right?
Tart, yeah.
Yeah, and his campaigns are wildly successful, but he's on like what, issue 10?
Yeah.
So he's on something. Like he's on like something crazy, and his campaigns are always great. And when I was on a panel with him, he said I could never do what you do, just start from scratch every single time. And I'm like, but dude, you're killing it with with your book, and it kind of.
It's nice, but it's nice to be able to have other girlfriends.
Yeah, I love jumping in stories, and if not, I would be going crazy just with a backlog of ideas.
Yeah. There was a comedian who was talking about his wife, and he said, "Why, dude, why do I have to worry about anything when I'm literally get to have steak every single day? That's pretty great. But every once in a while, don't you want a fucking hamburger?"
That's true.
I was like, yeah, kind of. Tart's awesome. Tart is awesome. I agree.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason it's successful.
Yeah, because it actually is a really good book. Good to see a Brazilian colorist doing a Kickstarter.
You could tell by my Brazilian complexion,
right? If you don't want to be confused, you should just change your last name to something else, like Cho. I think that would work really well for you.
I've actually had people like suggest that I do something a little different with my name to stop that confusion, but then I got lazy and I just said no, I'm not going to do that. And I've talked to him before. I reached out to him on Twitter and he was nice. He responded to me, but somebody had said that you might get, if you're both working for the same company, you might get like confused for him and it might screw up like accounting and stuff. And because I was in a Top Cow anthology, so my name is in the Images system. I receive comps from him every once in a while.
You actually have?
Yes,
dude.
So it's kind of
that's pretty great. Steph Wilson says, "Sign my Adventures books."
No, refuse.
You know what you should do though is just add another A into your name. And you could be Frank Martian.
Or I was going to put it at the end, being Frank Martina.
Oh, that's not bad.
I had a science teacher who was a moron, and she was doing attendance. This was in high school.
I already love this story. I had a science teacher who was a moron. The setup is perfect.
She was a moron, and she was doing attendance one day. And she said, on the first day, and she said, Frank Martin. And I go, actually, it's pronounced Frank. I'm Austrian. And she believed me.
Oh, my Lord.
So for about 3 weeks, she was calling me Frank until another teacher I had, I guess, was talking with her in the break room or something and said, his name is Frank. And she came to me and she said, you got me. I'm like, you're an idiot for thinking that. So my friends call me Frank every once in a while because they found it hilarious.
It is hilarious. So, yeah, see, even Josh thinks it's fucking great. Oh, that's fantastic, dude. Oh, it's so good. Dude, do you need to get some rest?
Yes, because I have children I have to take to school in the morning.
Yeah.
No, wait, tomorrow's Saturday. That's how badly I need rest. I don't even know what day it is.
Right? To be fair, I'd have called you Frank too, mostly to be ironic. There you go. All right, man. Why don't you tell everyone where they can track you down, just for the end of this
you're asking the same questions everybody asks. That's being real original, Chuck. This is my handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and my website is franktherwriter.com. So it's very simple.
You're right. I was very unoriginal, so I'm going to end this in a very original way, okay? Frank, you're a great dude, but fuck off.
Why bring me back? I was about to start stripping.
Right, that's why I brought you back. I saw you leading.
Show's over, baby. Take it all.
All right, Frank, thank you so much for being out. Congratulations on the Truce. I can't wait to read it again and check it out and everything. You guys have a great time. Take care of yourselves. My name is Chuck, and I care sometimes. Peace the fuck out.
Bye-bye.